Hello everyone, my name is Abhishek. Today, myself and my team will be talking about free trade and challenges South America face. Concerning NAFTA and possible renegotiation, Congress may discuss the impact of withdrawal on ties with Mexico and Canada, the results from Mexico and Canada, and how to modernize and rewrite NAFTA. Mexico began liberalizing its trade and investment restrictions decades before NAFTA, due to Mexico's participation in the Joint Agreement on Trade and Tariffs. As a result of NAFTA, the United States and Mexico were able to work together to resolve bilateral concerns and grow their export markets. A trilateral trade and investment deal between the US and Canada and Mexico as additional benefits than NAFTA's trade and investment prospects. Most Mexican exports already had low tariffs, and Mexico had the most restrictive trade barriers before NAFTA. The agreement helped Canada and the US gain popularity in Mexico, the fastest growing major export market for US services and exports.
Hi all, my name is Saurav and I'm here to present the factors affecting the growth of North America. So the first and foremost, the factor affecting the growth of North America is improving the flow of goods and services. After 15 years, the agreement gradually eliminated tariffs and most non-tariff barriers on goods made and traded into North America. It took almost 5 to 15 years to phase out some tariff and eliminate others. If products from another NAFTA member substantially affect local producers, the importing nation might impose charges on restriction on imports during the transition period. So this brings me to the next slide of my presentation, which about the factor affecting growth of North America is tackling the tariff. Most NAFTA market opening provisions reduce tariffs and import restrictions from Canada and the US. In 1993, all Mexican imports were subject to a 2.07% average tax. In 1993, again, about half of all the Mexican exports to the US were all duty-free. Tariffs on agricultural commodities in Mexico averaged to about 11%, which is a very good thing. In 1993, again, about half of all the Mexican exports to the US were all duty-free. So this brings me to the last slide of my presentation, which in this slide, I'm going to be talking about the last factor affecting the growth of North America, which talks about the removal of trade barriers by the industry. The industries like textile, clothes, automobiles, and agriculture have all seen considerable shifts in recent years. There are several important sectors where trade restrictions have been removed. Automobile industry, the auto regulations in Mexico were abolished as part of NAFTA. Before NAFTA, the US imposed tariff on Mexican imports. Agriculture, as part of the North American Free Trade Agreement, Mexico and Canada agreed to separate bilateral agreements on cross-border agricultural trade. So this brings me to the end of my presentation. So next part of the presentation will be presented by my next team member. His name is Ravi. Thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I am Ravi and I am going to discuss about liberalization in trade in services and other provisions of NAFTA. Basic principles and responsibility in service trade were defined under the NAFTA services clauses. Government regulate trade in services and this agreement expand on existing terms of the United States and Canada FTA. Cross-border sales, non-discrimination and access to information were among the rights guaranteed to service providers in the agreement. NAFTA in fact opened Mexico's financial services industry to more competition, but the rest of the company was mostly affected by the government. Agreement signed by the NAFTA parties prevent essential telecommunication services from being provided but not from being used. Now I'm going to talk about other provisions. Other provisions of NAFTA include the elimination of tariff and non-tariff barriers, the establishment of legislation and expanded market access for intellectual property rights, foreign investment, dispute resolution and procurement, investment from abroad, intellectual property rights, procedures for resolving disputes, and last, procurement by the government. Now my friend Akshay is going to talk about NAFTA side agreement and human systematic risk in upcoming slides. Thank you.
My name is Akshay Verma. Today I am discussing about on labor, environment and NAFTA side agreements. Those in Congress protested NAFTA's lack of labor and environmental protections throughout its consideration. NAFTA implementation law allowed the United States to participate in environmental and labor commissions and provide funds for these operations. NAFTA was the first free trade agreement to include environmental and labor safeguards. A new sort of partnership between NAFTA's partners, also seen as a chance to collaborate on environmental and labor issues across the borders. The Mexico and United States also signed a bilateral environmental cooperation pact as a part of NAFTA, in addition to the two trilateral accords. Both countries agreed to work together on environmental infrastructure projects along the Mexico-United border to reduce the economical issues caused by the growing economic activity on both sides of the border. Now moving to the topic of the presentation, like most of the developing countries, South America will confront significant problems in the area due to environmental changes, ongoing inequalities, and escalating level of violence. As a result, it is difficult for the region to grow independently. Now, Rishabh will explain further factors related to this topic. Thank you.
Hello everyone, myself Rishabh Goel, and today I'm going to discuss the two factors which make South America so difficult to develop. Starting with the human systematic risk, in 21st century, only ecosystem is not only under attack in the natural environment, but also humans, goods, money also affected. A country should rely on the global web with measuring the growing number of indices regularly. A major commerce effect occurred due to the mostly exchanging human labor for pay in different currency. The delivery of export and import would easily delayed process due to the political economic were disrupted. So the main point comes that the human risk occur due to the development interface within South America. Now, talking about environmental factors, so we face both immediate and long-term threats like airborne pollution. The lack of sanitary infrastructure is the main source of this pollution. Moreover, the frequency and condition of drought increases make situation even worse. Rising sea level are already an issue, and due to climate change, basic commodity like soybean and cattle breeding are vulnerable to fluctuation in climate change. Thank you. And now Vijay Tomar will discuss rest of the factors with you.
Hello everyone, my name is Vijay and now I will continue this slide. So the third point is inequality. Economic disparity has political ramifications that can't be isolated in one explanation. With increasingly unequal societies and political structures, the economic disparity may become an ingredient in society. Inequality in South America may not be a problem of economic disparity, but rather a problem of ensuring that the impoverished have access to political institutions that allows them to affect economic results. Furthermore, even though the economic disparity is a clearly visible and continuously measurable element of inequality, it only indirectly depicts the other forms of inequality. Generally, the presence of inequality leads to retardation within the development sectors. The next point is violence. Two major categories of violence in South America are intra-regional violence and the secondly is the crime-related violence, particularly in the drug-related markets. Social and demographic factors have a significant role in the variance beside the rise in the women in the workforce and a disproportionate the number of young males fuels an uptick in violent crime. South American countries have been unable to stabilize economic activities for the majority of their citizens. People in South America believe that impunity is the primary cause of the violence and the crime, even if structural factor plays a major part in explaining security in South America. People in most nations in the area go about their daily lives to understand that the authorities stop robberies and homicides if they occur. The last factor is the state capacity. South American government institutions are often seen as lacking in many areas, including the monopoly on the means of violence as detailed above. People who depend on transportation and communication services will be negatively affected by this long-term restriction on economic growth. South America's future depends on whether or not the circumstances are in place for the state to become more powerful. When it comes to the government's legitimacy, corruption is the more corruption is not merely a matter of economic inefficiencies, but also a threat to its existence. Generally, the state capacity is making it difficult for the South American countries to achieve development. Thank you.